It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Download it today. It is free. The website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get in while you fit in or where you fit in. Coming out with us for just $63.17. Not only can you join us, you can help us continue to grow and support this program. Last night in the world of college sports, the South Carolina Gamecocks and Dawn Staley bring home their second national championship. The dawn of a dynasty for the South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball team. We'll talk about that, what that means for Dawn Staley, her legacy. You say, what, Swanny? This is the show that shakes the Southland. Well, look, we're also going to talk about the fact that North Carolina got over on the Duke Blue Devils. And the Blue Devils are out, and Coach K's career is over. And tonight, it will be North Carolina taking on Kansas. But Swanny, it's Clemson Sports Talk. Yes, and we will also talk about the fact that there was some major news out of Tiger Town earlier today as Adam Randall, wide receiver out of Myrtle Beach, is going to be out for an extended period of time. We'll talk about that too. ACLs, they are the bane of the existence of coaches across the country. And Adam Randall, given the reviews, given the articles we wrote about him, looked like he was going to have a good start to his career. And now that will be put on hold for a while, it would appear. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Again, be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. We certainly appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with us, and we'll talk about the Adam Randall situation, what that can mean for Clemson in just a little bit. But, man, what a loss for Clemson at this point. 803-450-0086. There you go. Text line, phone line. Okay, so over the weekend, the NCAA tournament got back at it, and, of course, all eyes were on that Duke-North Carolina matchup. And the thing about this game, as much as you probably dislike these two teams, I think along the way, if you watched it, like if you were willing to tune in, I truly believe at some point you said to yourself, yeah, you know what? It's a shame somebody's got to lose this game, even though I'm okay with either team losing. Like, that's how competitive that matchup was. But I told my wife as we're watching it play out, I told her, I said, look, it really feels to me like Caleb Love is the best player on the court. And he had some bad moments, but he just has that killer instinct that you want to see, especially from a player on the perimeter. He just had that gusto, if you will, that you're looking for when it comes down to helping a team navigate through a tough stretch. And just when you kind of thought maybe North Carolina was coming to earth a little bit, they're up by one. Duke doesn't look overly phased, and the next thing you know, Love is pulling up for what otherwise, it's one of those shots with I guess there are about 28, 29 seconds left where your coach is going, no, 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 no. And it goes in. You're like, yeah, great shot, great shot. Like that moment, then going 3 for 4 from the free throw line, lifting North Carolina to the victory and into the NCAA championship against Kansas tonight. Here's what it sounded like as Caleb Love hit the shot to give North Carolina a 78-74 lead.
Love, top of the key. Oh, big time delivery.
Yes, indeed, it was a big time delivery, and that 3-pointer will be the situation that will deliver, or the play that has delivered North Carolina into the championship game. Now, early odds were that Kansas was going to win this ball game. Kansas pulled away from an undermanned Villanova squad, and the Kansas Jayhawks initially started off being the betting favorites in terms of who most people thought was going to win this game. But now the tide has shifted just a little bit from what I understand, and many people believing now that instead it may very well be North Carolina who comes away with the national championship in Hubert Davis's first season. Look, that is an impressive feat if it indeed happens. And I am by no means a Roy Williams fan, but now you've got Roy Williams and the school that he won 3 national championships at, North Carolina, taking on the school that set him on his direction to become the head coach at North Carolina, Kansas. And the joy that was on Roy's face as the North Carolina Tar Heels up into the Duke Blue Devils in the semifinals was simply incredible to see just in his first year off of the bench. Caleb Love, as I mentioned, what a performance. He finished with 28 points on 11 of 20 shooting. And to be able to carry the fact that not only did you beat Duke in Cameron Indoor Stadium in Coach K's final game, but now North Carolina gets to say, we beat Duke in Coach K's final game, something nobody at the beginning of the season would have ever expected. Instead, now that is the case, and the North Carolina Tar Heels have eternal bragging rights at this point as it comes down to the NCAA tournament matchup. These two teams had only met one other time. It was in the NIT in the postseason. But, man, you can't write a script for those two teams in Coach K's final year. One way or another, you were going to get a phenomenal story. I mean, if you just flip it and you go to Coach K winning and then winning a national championship, what an ending to his career in Durham. But instead, Coach K now walks off into the sunset, and John Shire will take over. And it is a new era in the Duke-North Carolina rivalry as the Shire-Davis, as he and Hubert Davis will now face off. Davis with just 1 year of additional experience on John Shire, which leads me to our big question here. Would you be able to walk away if you were Coach K? I mean, could you stomach that if you were Mike Krzyzewski? I honestly, I don't know if I could. And the reason being, right? Like, I think deep down, if you played sports, you are ultra competitive. And I think Coach K knew that his team would have the talent to get into the NCAA tournament. And even still, there's no way that when you're dreaming these scenarios, when you're sitting at home, and look, I know coaches don't live in the retrospective. Coaches don't live in the hindsight. They cannot focus on yesterday. They have to focus on the present and the future. So it's hard for me to believe that a coach that is, even a coach that is forward thinking, would think forward enough and go, but what if I end up against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament? And what if they beat me in the NCAA tournament? Like, your entire career, you'd never faced them in the NCAA tournament. There's no reason to believe that this would be the season that storyline would play out, which we all know that it ultimately did. But the truth is, and I think the fact of the matter behind all of it, from my standpoint, as a fan of the sport, is that if I am Coach K, and that's just happened to me, and I am no longer going to be the coach in my last moment, the thing that I have to remember is not only the pain of losing to North Carolina. It would be bad enough if you got beat by North Carolina in the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament and couldn't go to the NCAA. But if I had to get beat by them and do it in the NCAA tournament for the right to go to the national championship, and if they were to go on and win the title, and I know that they had to get through me, and they did to win it, I mean, that would be brutal. That would be brutal. As much as you might want to retire, and look, I'm not telling you Coach K is not healthy, all right? Don't be the guy. Don't be the guy, or don't be the lady or the guy or whoever that says, well, Swanny said Coach K looks sick. That's not what I'm saying. But Coach K, you could tell his stride, his gait, he's looking, the years are wearing on him. And I can't imagine the stress of trying to coach at the level in which he tries to coach on what that would do to you. Just from the rigors of a season. Now, look, you got plenty of money in the bank, so that's a positive. But could you go out? Like, could you imagine? Let's flip the script for a second. Let's pretend okay, well, you know what we'll do? Because it's really not a great comparison. Because if I were to say Clemson and Alabama in football, right? Like, that's not the same comparison as Duke, North Carolina. And these have to be two essentially, rivals. So the scenario I have to present is one that is really so far from anything that you could ever imagine actually happening. Imagine for a minute, a little rib to our Gamecock friends here. Imagine for a minute that South Carolina is right on Clemson's level nationally in football, and they have been even more consistent over your lifetime than Clemson has been in these past few seasons. And what I mean by that is Clemson and South Carolina both have 5 or 6 national titles in football. You've got this coach that's been at your school at Clemson for years and years. And this is his final season. He's going out one way or another. And they get to the into the college football playoff. And you're matched up against South Carolina. And as good as you guys have been, you've never faced off in the championship game. You've only really faced off in the regular season. And here it is for all the marbles, a chance to go to the title game. And you get beat. And again, this is your arch rival that's been right on par with your play, the national championships, all of that goes into it. Plus, they're, 8 miles away from you? Like, that's the other thing, too. Like, 8-10 miles apart, the campuses. Just that in and of itself might be enough. I think it would be enough, quite frankly. I don't know if I was Coach K that I could go out like that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I couldn't. I would have to say, listen, John Shire, love you, buddy. But I just can't go out like that. Like, I can go out getting beat in the NCAA tournament by anybody else. I can go out and falter and fall and lose. But I can't go out like that because all of a sudden what you do is, right? And if you're Coach K, and let's say I always tell my children, hate's a strong word. So I don't like to believe that Coach K hates North Carolina. And I thought it was a neat moment after the game when Kenny the Jet Smith, North Carolina graduate, is telling Grant Hill, that he appreciates Coach K because what Coach K did was when Duke got better than North Carolina knew, oh, no, we can't have this happen. We can't allow that to happen. And so Duke's success drove North Carolina. And it's that old saying I said last week, competition is healthy. Competition breeds innovation and success. But if you're Coach K, and let's just for the sake of this argument use the word hate. Let's just say you hate North Carolina. You hate their fans. You hate their colors. You hate their mascot. Well, they feel like they got one over on you back on March 5th when they beat you in Durham in your final home game. And they've had that in their back pocket for nearly a month. Then, 2 nights ago, they beat you in the NCAA tournament, not just anywhere in the tournament, but in the Final Four for the right to go to the national championship. Now they've got that in their pocket the rest of your life. And there's really not really any words that Coach K could say. He couldn't come out and say, we've always appreciated North Carolina. We've always enjoyed battling with those guys. I mean, nothing he could say could get North Carolina back to a degree. And I will take it even a step further. I don't really know if there's anything else he could do to put that same type of feeling on North Carolina fans. Like, even if he had won at Cameron, even if Coach K had won this final game, I don't think it puts the same type of feelings on North Carolina fans that they have right now with the 2 notches in their belt from what they did to Duke this season in Coach K's final run. So what is the alternative for Coach K here? How could you possibly get them back, even if next season you could potentially win that game or beat them in the tournament or whatever, right? Like, to repay those 2 losses. What could do more to them than even that? Just come back. One more run. And what do? You steal that from them, because now that's not your last game against North Carolina. That's not the last time you potentially have a shot at the national title. And even though it would be tough to downplay or talk back the fact that they beat you to go to the NCAA championship game, you still know that those weren't the last opportunities. I don't know that I could walk away if I was Coach K. Let me know what you could do. Could you walk away? Text me. I'd walk, Swanny. 803-450-0086. Or text me and let me know. I'd stick it out. You go one more ride, whatever you want to say. 803-450-0086. Again, the NCAA National Championship game underway, or getting underway this evening, as the North Carolina Tar Heels, who are an 8 seed, take on the Kansas Jayhawks, who are a 1 seed. 9:20 p.m. on TBS. Kansas, I mentioned the lines there. Kansas is a 4-point favorite, but it appears money is coming in pretty quickly on the Tar Heels. So Kansas the favorite, but the Tar Heels getting more love from the public at this point. 803-450-0086. Well, was not a great weekend at Doug Kingsmore Stadium for your Clemson Tigers as they dropped 2 out of 3 to NC State. We'll touch on that when we get back here on a Monday afternoon. Stay with us. Back at it all day, Monday afternoon, the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk Law and Swan with you. Don't forget, you can catch my buddy Rob Sanders from 3 until 4 o'clock on the Rundown right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Plus, Talking Sports with Teddy Hefner from 9 until noon each and every day. 3 hours of talking sports. Teddy, a legend in our business here in the Midlands of South Carolina. 803-450-0086. That's the way you can be a part of the program and hang out with us. And I got to say, man, when it comes down to this Clemson Tiger baseball team, and we'll hear some from Monty Lee from his comments yesterday after the Tigers fall late to NC State in the rubber match of that series. Clemson jumped out in the opening game 14-3 on Friday night. And of course, if you've kind of followed this Clemson Tiger team, when you see that 14 spot, you go, man, you know what? Swinging the ball well, you expect the momentum to continue, but it wouldn't, as NC State even the series with a 5-2 win on Saturday. Clemson was wearing those camouflage uniforms, honoring those members of our military. But then yesterday, up at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, NC State rallies from behind to come away with a 9-7 victory off of Devontae Brown's 2-run single in the 7th inning, breaking a 6-6 tie, which would go on to lift North Carolina State to the win. And, you know, the Tigers dropped the series. Maybe, you know, more importantly, you look at this Clemson Tiger team right now in terms of their record, more specifically in conference play. And it's not maddening by any means, but I do get the feeling that it's a little bit disheartening for those Clemson Tiger faithful who, you know, love this baseball team so much and honest to goodness had so much hope early on in the season. And now, listen, there's a lot of baseball left. You are going to have your ups and downs, and the Tigers are back at it, taking on number 10, Georgia, by the way, tomorrow night at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. So you get ample opportunities to bounce back, if you will. But right now, Clemson currently 8-19 overall, but a disappointing 2-6 in the league, placing them next to last in the Atlantic Division. Next to last in the Atlantic Division. Also with the least amount of conference wins of any team in the league except for Boston College. BC has 2 wins. Clemson has 2. I mean, it's a tough conference. Nobody's denied that fact. Nobody has denied that fact at all. But man alive, would you, you know, just if you could have, you know, gotten another opportunity maybe at Pitt, you know, even that still doesn't reverse the opening 2 losses in that series before the bad weather came through, the really bad weather. And it's just, you know, for fans, I think there's a lot of frustration. And look, if you guys are trying to like hide your frustration, you're not doing a good job. It's evident on social media. Almost every time we post a story about Clemson Tiger baseball, people have something negative to say about Monty Lee and you know the job that he's doing. And so I do find myself getting frustrated per se, but I am not even somebody that spent oodles of time at Doug Kingsmore Stadium when I was in college. I mean, that was not my sport. While my dad played at Wofford, baseball was not my go-to. Baseball was not going to be the sport that I was going to commit to go spend 3-4 hours watching. And so I have a little a little different perspective on baseball. I think that those of you that are, hard, fast, concerned, and frustrated by it all, I think that those of you that feel that way certainly have every right to feel that way. It's the way I feel when I watch Clemson basketball. The difference being, I truly think Clemson baseball still has a chance to have a really good season. And I don't think you have to, quote, hope for it. I think you have to hope a lot with Clemson Tiger basketball. You have to hope for some fortune. This baseball team has proven that they can put some runs on the board. But nonetheless, yeah, I know people were disappointed after you win that opener, putting up 14 runs. You feel like, okay, here we go. Now just win one of the next two and you win the series. Instead, both of them go the Wolfpack's way. Here's Monty Lee following Sunday's loss against the Wolfpack.
Well, a really tough loss today. Give NC State credit. Felt like we fought hard. We were down 4-1 and, scored a couple runs there in the fourth and put together a big inning in the fifth and took the lead. And, the sixth and the seventh inning is what got us. Quite honestly, we had the lead going into the sixth inning there and just couldn't execute pitches, didn't execute pitches good enough. And that was the name of the game today. They had a lot of two-strike hits and, we just didn't execute pitches when we needed to. We had opportunities to get out of innings and close out innings, and we just simply didn't do it. Offensively, we certainly did enough, scored 7 runs. Score 7 runs, put together a big inning, you should win the game. It's really that simple. So, played good defensively, swung the bats well. But bottom line is we didn't pitch good enough, and we got to pitch better. And we got to execute pitches when we get ahead of hitters and close out innings. And if we do that, we're going to win. And if we don't, we're going to struggle. It's really that simple. So that's it.
Yeah, Monty Lee, again, the frustration, you can hear it. They got to execute. They got to do a better job. And 2-6 right now, like I said, only one other team in the league with just 2 victories, Boston College at 2-10, Clemson 2-6. With a break, stay with us. Rocking and rolling along with you all day, Monday afternoon, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. All right, so look, if you tuned in because you're a Gamecock peeking over the fence because you want to hear me apologize for my take on Dawn Staley last week or maybe even 2 weeks ago in the comparisons I had to John Calipari, you'll get none of that from me. Suck it up, Buttercup. You'll get none of that from me. Because my correlation between the two was merely off of their current resumes. And the thing I continued to say was, if Dawn Staley doesn't win another national title, and look, I know everybody wants to talk about the COVID season and how that year South Carolina would have won a national championship. Well, would have, could have, should have, never did. And we didn't get a tournament that year. So it's all retrospective and speculative. Speculative might be the better word I was looking for there about what would have happened. So I give you nothing on that. Like, congratulations. You look like you had the best team in America. Pat yourselves on the back. That and a quarter will get you a knee caught. But that's it. All right. So with that being said, last night's performance by Dawn Staley's basketball team was simply phenomenal for a couple of reasons. And if you are a Clemson Tiger today who was rooting for the Gamecocks, I'm okay with that because of who their opponent was. I think the thing that you have to recognize, maybe more than anything else, is that if South Carolina was playing Stanford or any other program, it would be easy. it would be easy to pull against Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks. You say, well, they've been so good for so long. But Connecticut, folks, is essentially the Alabama Crimson Tide of college women's basketball, and really more so. Even more so. And with 12 titles, by the way, under Gina Oriam, if my memory serves me correctly from last night's game. So when South Carolina wins 64-49 yesterday in an impressive fashion, beating Oriama for the first time ever, his first loss ever in the NCAA tournament championship, the Gamecocks went 14-0 against teams ranked in the AP Top 25. They finished 35-2. They went wire to wire as the number one team in the country. You just tip your cap. I mean, Aaliyah Boston was dominant throughout the entire season. She was the Final Four MVP. She was the National Player of the Year. She was the Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, if they had the pancake making Player of the Year, she probably would have won that too. And I'm the best pancake maker I know. And I'm sure that if there was an award for it, Aaliyah Boston was going to win it. But she was that good all season for Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks. But you know what? Winning that game separated Dawn Staley from John Calipari. That argument is no longer valid. It doesn't hold water as it did yesterday evening before the tip-off of that ball game. But South Carolina came out, blitzed UConn early. The Huskies fought back. But Oriama was handed his first loss in a title game. Aaliyah Boston said after the game, I feel like coming into this game, the conversation was about how Coach Oriama was 11-0, but Coach Staley was 1-0, and now she's 2-0. I think that just shows the type of program she's built. Because they're facing UConn, if you were pulling for South Carolina last night, the ladies, to win the national title, or you'd prefer them to win, your boy Swanny's got no qualms with it. I think there are plenty of Gamecocks. And here's the other part. Like, Dawn Staley is hard not to like. Much like I think for a lot of people, mostly some of the ladies on the Gamecock side of things because of the heartfelt things that he does. Like, some men like brush it off and go, nah, that guy, whatever. But I think a lot of the females around South Carolina football see Dabo Swinney as very genuine. They see him much like they see Shane Beamer. And I think they think or say to themselves, look, these guys are a lot alike. So I'm okay, supporting, one or the other. And I want Carolina to beat Clemson. But I don't mind Dabo Swinney having some success because I like him. I think he's a good person, whatever reasons people have. And Dawn Staley, to me, is kind of the same way. Like, I look at her program. You have to respect it. She's not at her alma mater. She played at Virginia. She's taken a program that wasn't great. They couldn't get anybody in the arena. She's made it the must-see sport, the must-see event in Columbia. One difference I will say, and tell you what, we only got about 30 seconds, but here's what we'll do. When we come back, we still haven't even talked about Adam Randall, by the way, being hurt. We mentioned it, but we hadn't talked about the implications of that and just the number of guys that have been hurt, man. It is wild. But when we come back here on a Monday afternoon, I'll give you one major difference that I believe exists, and I have no evidence. There's no measurable here, really, that I can think of. But I'll give you one major difference I think exists between Clemson winning a national championship, plural form, in football, and South Carolina winning a national championship in plural form in women's basketball. I'll tell you the one huge difference in the two, in my opinion, when we get back here on the program. 803-450-0086. Stick around for more Clemson Sports Talk. Final segment of hour number 1 here on a Monday afternoon. Lawton Swan hanging out with you. All right, so we were talking about South Carolina. Congratulations, Gamecock fans. Puff out your chest a little bit. National championships, women's college basketball. And it's a big deal. Dawn Staley, a heck of a recruiter, a heck of a coach. All totaled, maybe the greatest women's basketball player in terms of success on the court as a player and off the court as a coach that we've ever seen. And that may translate to both sports. Like, who is that? Now, there's a quizzical question. Who is the most successful men's basketball coach that also had a great level of success playing the game? I don't know that it exists. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't really coach. Wow, that's a deep one. All right, so we're going to think on that. We got to think on that. Who is the most successful? I may even throw that in the Google machine in a minute. The most successful basketball coach. Let's keep it collegiate. Playing and coaching. I have no idea. However, I do want to say this. Going back to my comments just a little bit ago, I think the major difference is this. Do I believe that South Carolina winning a national championship in women's basketball helps the university? Yes. Does it bring in more applications? Sure. Does it benefit the rest of your athletic programs? Probably to an extent. But at Clemson, it is there's no like probablys to it, right? Like, football is the sport. Like, Clemson is winning national championships right now in the most essential sport on campus to be great at in order to increase revenue, enrollment, boosters, like all of that. What South Carolina gets from the Dawn Staley's victory, are there boosters that kick up more? Sure, there are. There's some, I guarantee you. But is that going to change a kid's mind about whether they're coming to South Carolina or not? Most likely not. And I'm not telling you football changes every kid's mind. But I could imagine that there's a kid who plays a sport in high school. It's kind of the reason I thought Zion Williamson might have come to Clemson. You had Trevor Lawrence there. You had a football team that was going to be competing for the college football playoff, maybe a national title. Why not roll in and have a big time on campus doing that, and then try to have a big time on campus playing basketball as well? But I think that's the biggest difference here. Football will tend to bleed over into more sports, in my estimation, for donor dollars, and it just has a bigger influence than women's basketball. I mean, women's basketball at Clemson is clearly behind men's basketball, baseball, men's soccer, possibly women's soccer in terms of support. I mean, obviously, look, I didn't mention football. That seems beside the point. But the fact is, that's the 5th or 6th most important / popular sport at Clemson, and probably falls into that category at a lot of schools. But it is that is not meant to take away from what South Carolina achieved. I just think that the broader benefit that Clemson has because of football being good right now and 2 national titles and everything that they've done, is greater than what Dawn Staley has done. Now, the thing that Staley's really got going for her is how young she is. And I think the fact that players, while I believe she is hard-nosed and tough to the core, I think the perception of her outside of the court is so much different. And I think it's imagining that Gino Auriemma is perceived more like Nick Saban, and Dawn Staley would be more perceived like Dabo Swinney, like somebody who, like Dawn Staley was dancing with the trophy last night. Dawn Staley handed the trophy to the pep band, and she gets it. She's like Dabo Swinney, and she gets it, and she knows how to increase the interest and support for her team. And then there was that whole thing about, man, the big blow up about, I saw a lot of Gamecock fans saying they weren't going to pull for Dawn Staley because they didn't go out for the national anthem. And I didn't get a chance to hear what Staley said after the game, but I know this, they were out there for the national anthem before the game. And the other thing, too, like, I can't think of a single football team that is on the field for the national anthem. All of that happens when the football team's still in the locker room at Clemson or South Carolina. It all happens before the teams run out. So why would we believe that in one sport a team has to be out before the national anthem, and in another they're more than welcome to be in the locker room? Like, that doesn't make sense. If your team and your routine leaves you in the locker room, you know, whether it's for last-minute coaching or instruction, when the national anthem is playing and people get angry about that, I feel like they're just creating a controversy. Because nobody complains about it with college football when players are still in the locker room before the game. Just my 2 cents. Hour 2 coming up.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you on a Monday afternoon. What a weekend it was up in Tiger Town. Lots of family stuff going on up there for me, and I had a chance to attend the Distinguished Service Award and Roaring 10 awards. My nephew was given one of the Roaring 10. That's given to one of the influential graduates of the last 10 years at Clemson. Got my invite in the mail. Jokingly would say that. It's not like Clemson was ever going to invite me back. They might have given me a decade award, but it was for my decade there, not my decade outside of being at school. But that was really an awesome event. And Will Brasington and President Jim Clements did just an unbelievable job with that, and the stories of so many of those people, especially those individuals that got the Distinguished Service Award and their capacities. As a matter of fact, there was a general there, 4-star general there, who was being honored by Clemson. And I know some of you probably, when you first heard of Space Force, thought, yeah, right, is that a real thing? And then you saw Netflix made a mockumentary, I guess, of it all. I know this. John W. Raymond is a Clemson graduate, and he is the first chief of space operations, and he was at the event as one of the Distinguished Service Award winners. And again, the United States Space Force was established December 10th, 2019. And I got to hold a medallion, I guess you'd call it, that these guys give away. And I'll be honest with you, it was pretty sweet. And I was talking to the general on his way out. Couldn't have been nicer. And I asked him, I said, General, where did you live when you were in college at Clemson? And he said that he lived in Lever. And I asked him, I said, I was an old Johnstone guy myself, Johnstone F. And he said, well, I also lived in Johnstone F at one point. And so for all you fellow Johnstone, I don't know if we'd call you Effians, Johnstone F-ites, whatever the word would be, pat yourselves on the back today because a former Johnstone member is the head of one of the branches of the military, and albeit a new one in the Space Force, he is a 4-star general from the halls of Johnstone F. And people thought you couldn't make it if you went if you had to live in Johnstone. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Again, you can be a part of this program anytime, any place, and anywhere. Some tough news, though, out of Tiger Town as Clemson loses freshman wide receiver Adam Randall for an extended period with an ACL injury. The good news is, if I had to give you the good news, and I'll be interested to hear what Dabo Swanny says today. They come off of the practice fields around 5:50, something like that. So in about 50 minutes or so, they're supposed to come off the practice field. Couple of quick things here. I think the good news is that it's April the 4th. And one of the things we've learned rather quickly with ACLs in 2022 versus ACLs in 82 is that the period to return, how quickly you can get back, is significantly expedited now. And I'm not telling you that Adam Randall will be lined up because each player individually is built uniquely and they heal at their own pace. The best news maybe of this injury, if there's any positive news, is that it's April 4th. And maybe Adam Randall will have time to bounce back. Dabo Swanny said the following, and we had heard that there had been an injury, significant injury, weren't quite sure who it was. I thought it might be a skill position guy. I talked to my buddy Tyrese Ingram today. He said, Swanny, I'm hearing it's Adam Randall. And I was just like, oh, really? And so Tyrese actually wrote a story the other week called Adam Randall Labeled a Different Breed by Former Prep Teammate and Impresses the Clemson Staff. Go check that out. It's actually in the article we put out on the breaking news of Adam Randall. Of Adam Randall's injury, but Dabo Swanny did have this to say about Adam Randall. He said, Adam sustained a knee injury in practice on Friday. He is expected to undergo surgery to repair a torn ACL later this week, after which time I know he will begin attacking his rehab. Adam has had a tremendous spring. We look forward to having him back on the field once he is returned to full health. So this is a Clemson team that was decimated at wide receiver a season ago. And at this point is already banged up, but loses a young man who was sort of flashing, if you will, that he was going to have a chance to play a good bit early on. I mean, it just appeared that Adam Randall had the physique necessary to go ahead and step in and even look at times larger just physically than Justin Ross, who was heading to the NFL. He's wearing that same number 8 that you're also familiar with from Justin Ross. And now he'll have to, go through the rigors. The good news is bouncing back from this injury is so different, as I said earlier, than it was 25 years ago. And we've seen guys, Amari Rodgers most recently, really making a quick turnaround from being injured in the spring and being ready to rock and roll early on. To put it in perspective, Amari Rodgers' knee injury, when that took place, it was March 25th, 2019. That's about a week. And, so from when the injury, it's 1 week prior to the injury that was just sustained by Adam Randall. Amari Rodgers, exactly 1 week, because Randall's was last Friday, and the 25th of March would be 7 days exactly before the first. So if we keep the same timeline, Amari Rodgers bounced back in 166 days. I think, let's see, that would put us at September the 14th as a possible. I mean, look, again, everybody heals differently. There's no guarantees of the surgeries being the same or as successful or whatever. But that would be missing the Georgia Tech game on the 5th, the Furman game on the 10th, and then possibly back for the Louisiana Tech game on September the 17th. So that's the one little bright caveat to all of this, is that even if it's awful, just to have another player go through this, given the rash of injuries that Clemson's had at wide receiver over the past couple of years, the positive for Adam Randall is there is a significant amount of time to bounce back. And so you've got EJ Williams, who's been out after undergoing knee surgery. Dabo Swanny, well-documented Troy Stellado's issues and never being healthy, hurting his hamstring the first day of spring practice, and was finally getting back after it. Will Taylor, we know, working out with the baseball team, finally taking some swings, still recovering from a torn ACL. Brandon Spector, we heard from him at length last week. He's returning after the COVID issues that he dealt with a season ago. Bo Collins injured his hamstring during spring break, according to Dabo Swanny. And so, one after the other, there has been injuries galore. And Joe Ngata, who right now, knock on wood, is healthy, has had a litany of injuries during his time at Clemson. So how this all shakes up or whatever, I honestly can't tell you. But the good news is Adam Randall should be back if he heals like most people are healing, and if the surgery is as successful as it normally is. You would expect that he could be back by the second or third week of the season. And that would be a huge benefit for Clemson. It's just disappointing that you don't get this opportunity to have Adam Randall out there right now, because he has been such a just the talk that has surrounded him. It might be the better way to put it, this entire offseason. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Don't forget, you can be a part of the program anytime, any place, and anywhere. We mentioned the Clemson Tiger baseball team earlier, losing 2 out of 3 over the weekend to NC State. Well, the ladies, the softball team, John Rittman's squad, went up to North Carolina and put a sweep in the basket. Here's Coach Rittman following the sweep on Sunday.
Hey, Tiger fans, great weekend sweep here at North Carolina. Really impressed with our pitching today. Reagan did a fabulous job. We needed to play a little bit better defense behind her, but she really did well today. And then Brooke came in and got a save, which was huge for her to get a couple of innings, and she was really dominant in her 2 innings of work. Offensively, listen, Marissa Gambarda, Aaliyah Logaleo, just big weeks. Great day today for both of them. Abby Vieira with another big home run today. Maddie Moore giving us some pop in the bottom of the lineup is huge. Just really proud of our team, our effort this weekend, getting the sweep on the road, which is never easy. Looking forward to a doubleheader against Furman on Wednesday. Go Tigers.
John Rittman, Clemson softball coach, following Clemson's 3-game sweep on the road at North Carolina. The Clemson Tiger softball team, as you heard him mention, will return home for a doubleheader on Wednesday. The Clemson Tiger baseball team, however, tries to right the wrongs that have taken place after a 14-0 start to open the season. The Tigers are just 4-9 in their last 13 ball games, and they'll face a number 10 ranked Georgia Bulldog team tomorrow at 7:00 at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. That game will feature the Bulldogs, who are 22-6, while Clemson now 18-9. Will also be available on the ACC network. Georgia leads the all-time series against Clemson, and this is one of those like out-of-the-box kind of wow factor stats for you. Because I think Clemson, obviously, most people kind of perceive it to be a school with a proud baseball tradition and maybe overlook Georgia. But the Bulldogs actually lead the all-time series 128-108 and 20-game advantage to the good for the Georgia Bulldogs in this series all-time. Billy Barlow going to be on the bump for the Tigers. Hank Bearden for the Bulldogs. Righty-righty duel tomorrow, 7:00, Doug Kingsmore Stadium. They will play again 2 weeks from tomorrow on April the 19th in Athens, Georgia. The Tigers are batting .304 this season, but yet still have hit quite the slump after their incredible start out of the gates to the year. Text line, phone line, always available. The website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Did you know you could join us over there as a premium subscriber and support the program? Premium subscriptions are just $63.17 for 1 year of coverage of your Clemson Tigers. That's right, Gamecock Nation. You got your national title, but no matter what, we'll always have 63-17. And for those of you wondering, what national title did they get? Maybe you missed it. Last night, the Lady Gamecocks, South Carolina, wins the national title over UConn in convincing fashion. And the women's basketball team now has 2 national titles under Dawn Staley, 64-49. They held UConn to just 8 points in the first quarter. South Carolina was up 22-8 after the first frame. UConn would challenge several times in the game, but at every opportunity, South Carolina figured out a way to bounce back, and they end up with the convincing 15-point win over the most decorated basketball team in women's hoops history. And look, Gino Auriemma has been simply phenomenal during his time at UConn. I think the question now becomes for Gino, who is 68 years young, how much longer does he want to keep coaching? His last national title came back in 2015. So you're talking about a stretch longer than only his stretch that he had when he began his career at UConn. Auriemma took over at UConn in 1985. He did get the Huskies to the Final Four in just 6 seasons, but he would not win a national title until 9 years. Actually, his 10th full season. They won the national title in 1994-95, going 35-0. After that, it would take them 5 more seasons to get back. They won it in 99-2000. Then they missed it 1 year. They win it 3 consecutive years from 01 through 03. Then they miss it for 4 years. Win it in 08 and 09. Miss it for 2 years. Then they win it from 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. But that's it. This is the longest drought that Gino Auriemma has had as a head coach at UConn. And this past game against South Carolina, while his first loss in the NCAA Tournament Championship game, he has not been to the NCAA Tournament Championship since that 2015 season until last night. How much longer does Gino want to go? With a quick break, we'll bounce back with more on the show that shakes the Southland. It is Clemson Sports Talk right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeartRadio app. And don't forget, you can listen to my buddies Rob Sanders from 3 until 4 o'clock and Teddy Hefner from 9 until noon, weekdays. Stay with us. Clemson Sports Talk. We are on Twitter at Clemson Sports. That's Clemson news, notes, information, and more. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Plus, if you are signed up for our website, which again, $63.17 for a year, you get those breaking news alerts. You can get text to your phone. You can get emails right to your inbox with all the news right out of Tiger Town. Our fantastic team keeping you updated, but more so, man, you join in and help us. We can make the team even more fantastic. And I'm not talking about your Clemson Tigers. I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, and they were asking me about season tickets to Clemson and what all that entails and how can you get them. And I said, you know what? I can't tell you. And they're like, what do you mean? You know everything about Clemson, Swanny. I said, look, I cannot be a member of IPTAY, so I have no idea. Like, if you sign up, whether or not you can get a ticket in the upper deck this season, ever. Like, I have no idea. I don't know. Like, do you, as an IPTAY member, are you guaranteed 2 tickets? Is that how it works? Let me know. Then I can at least answer my friend. Or at what level do you have to give on IPTAY in order to reach a level where you can get tickets? Because I'm sure, I know there's like what you guys call them priority points. Like, I've been around it. It's kind of weird. You're like in this role with a website and talking with people through the years. Like, I know there's some kind of point system in place. But can anybody, like, if you sign up for IPTAY today, do you get tickets? And I'm not talking about the road games. I know that's not going to happen. But do you get tickets to the home games? Is it that simple? 803-450-0086. I would think you would. Like, I would think that it would be very hard to get people to donate if they don't get tickets to the home games immediately. You're probably not going to be in great seats. but I guess you'll be in the venue. But I honestly, I told him, I said, look, I can't be an IPTE, so I don't know anything about it. And I felt kind of foolish. But Swanny, you know everything about Clemson. Yeah, that's one area I don't. Speaking of Clemson, one of the other cool things that took place this weekend for me and my family, and I put this out on social media, my niece, who is up there, received her Clemson ring during Clemson's ring ceremony. Yet again, something that they didn't have when I was at school. And although my dad's listening right now, he's going, like you would have participated had it existed. You're right, Dad. I probably wouldn't have. But they did have a ring ceremony, and it was great to hear all the stories about the Clemson ring. My family has been going to Clemson since 1908. My great-grandfather graduated in 1912. That means my nieces, that would be her great-great-grandfather. But then she had to come back because we had a little gathering here in Columbia. She came to the house, and I pulled out my granddad's 1940 Clemson class ring. And either A, my granddad wore that thing on his pinky finger, or B, hands have gotten a lot larger in 80 years because that thing doesn't come close to sliding on my whatever. I don't know what finger this is. My ring finger. I guess that's what you call that finger, a ring finger. I mean, I know the index, I know the bird, I know the pinky, and I know the thumb. So whatever you call that other one, my granddad's ring doesn't come close to fitting on there from 1940. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, you can be a part of this program anytime, any place, anywhere. We always appreciate you hanging out with us, sharing the show, and telling all your friends and neighbors about what we do. And it is a growing audience. We've had so many wonderful people that we've run into. Even this week when I was up in Clemson, several people coming up to me and saying, Swanny, man, it was good to listen to you. Great to see you. Hope you're well. And, that does make me feel really, really good. Well, last Friday, I don't know if you were here for it, but we had a chance to sit down with Clemson soccer coach Mike Noonan. I am not going to run that interview at length with you here on the program today, but I am going to run just a little portion of that interview for you in the upcoming segment. So that'll give you some of the juice there. We'll also load that bad boy up fully. Expect this week over on the website, our Sammy Brown, the top linebacker in America, our interview with him. He was actually headed to Alabama, I think, this week, maybe even today, to get down there to see the Crimson Tide. So a whole lot going on. Plus, today, coming up in just a little bit, Clemson will be coming off the practice fields. We are expected to hear from CJ Spiller and defensive end coach Lemansky Hall. I do wonder now with the release from Dabo Swanny if we will hear anything from Coach Swanny or not, or if that'll just be, if that's all we'll get on the Adam Randall situation. Again, Randall sustaining an ACL tear on Friday. Dabo Swanny saying that Randall is expected to undergo surgery to repair the torn ACL later this week. And after that, he will begin attacking his rehab. Swanny went on to say Adam Randall has had a tremendous spring. We look forward to having him back on the field once he is returned to full health. So that's the statement from Dabo Swanny on Adam Randall, Clemson University wide receiver. And again, we will hear from running backs coach CJ Spiller and Lemansky Hall, who coaches Clemson's defensive ends this afternoon. We'll have all of that on our YouTube channel. Go check that out when you get a chance. tinyurl.com/Clemson Sports TV. It's that easy. With a quick break, we'll come back with some of that interview from Friday's show with Clemson's national championship winning head coach, Mike Noonan, right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Stay with us. Back at it on a Monday afternoon. You know, Friday, right out of the gates, we talked with Mike Noonan, and some of you may have missed it if you are not an hour one listener. Here's a segment from that interview for you on a Monday. Coach Noonan, welcome in. It's been far too long. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, and thanks for having me tonight. It has been a long time, so happy to be with you and look forward to the chat.
Yeah, listen, first off, I think for Clemson Tiger fans, you know, looking at this soccer program over my lifetime, again, I'm born in 77. They win 2 national titles and in 84 and 87. And the fan base is like hungry for more, right? And you have these great years, but not quite there. And then you come in and take over, you get close, you kick in the door this past season. When did you know that this program, whether it be in 2022 or prior, could get back to that national championship level?
When I took the job in 2010, there was never a doubt in my mind that I grew up with the great Clemson teams, not just the national championship teams of the 80s, but in the late 70s as well. And the athletic program at Clemson has always been, one of the finest in the country. And, I was very confident I wouldn't have taken the job, and that was the mission and that was the goal when we came down here in 2010. The program wasn't in good shape at that point, and it took us a while to get it back on its feet. But over the course of the last, 6 or 7 years, we've been able to, as you said, come close, win some championships in the ACC, win some divisional titles, make it to a final game in the NCAA tournament. So, it's just a matter of not if, it was a matter of when, and this was the year.
And when you have something like that back in 2015, I think it was, when you're the runner-up, and those guys aren't on the program in 2021 for that season for the national title, but what does getting close then do for you, your staff, and just the essence of the program when people all of a sudden go, hey, listen, we're on the doorstep again, let's go get this thing?
Yeah, I think that, like anything else, and you see this throughout all high-level competitive sport, is that teams have I think Pat Riley called it the innocent climb, right? And you get to the point where you've climbed to the precipice, but you have to experience what it is to get to the very, very top. And that was 2015 for us. We might have been a year early with that team, but won some games, close games, won in penalties, and then in the final we ran into a buzzsaw and probably the best college soccer player in the last 10 years who just qualified the World Cup with the U.S. and Jordan Morris.
Well, and that's the way it goes sometimes, especially in college soccer when you play in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and when you get into postseason play as well, running into fantastic opponents. And Mike Noonan, Clemson national championship winning head soccer coach, that's gotta have a good feeling to it, huh?
Well, yeah, I guess it's for me, it's more Clemson men's soccer national championship that has the best feeling to it, right? Because our sport, Lawton, right? It is a player-driven game, right? Our job really as coaches is to create an experience and in training create an atmosphere for the players to make the decisions that they're going to have to make in the game. And then once the game starts, there's not a lot. I mean, halftime, some substitutions, but the players have to be well trained, and so the players get the credit, really, not the coaches. Clemson gets the credit too because they've supported us in order to get here now twice.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like I think about the investment. Like if you look at the grand scheme of the athletic department, the investment that fans have in Clemson football is obviously tremendous and has been for a long time. But it is a passionate group of fans that show up at historic Riggs Field that support you guys. I mean, what have the comments been to you now with the national championship and to your players from those fans who have been there through the ups and the downs of all those years to have that, that glory finally again.
Yeah, I think it's just a massive appreciation of being able to do that. I've said this publicly in a lot of different venues now, is that winning a national championship in Clemson, South Carolina, there's no place better to do it because of the fans and because of the community, and because it means so much to them, right? And doing it in the right way. And I think not only did those fans show up at historic Riggs Field, but I'm sure you watched the semifinal and the final. It was a home game, and the fans, it was awesome. What an environment. And, that creates a situation where our players get an extra 5, 10, 15%. And they don't, they want to play well. They want to play well for our fans, and they don't want to let them down.
Really, that goal in the opening minute was incredible to watch. Did you guys see something on tape from Washington's goalie that you thought, because you sent one in deep right early on and he came out and played it, and then you sent another one back in there and he made the big key mistake?
No, I think that's, early on in the game, tactically, you want to play in the other team's end until the game settles, right? And okay, that was the tactic. It wasn't the goalkeeper. It wasn't anything that Washington was doing, and he made a mistake, and it's a pressure-filled game. And he made a mistake, and Isaiah capitalized on it. But to be honest with you, the second goal was sensational. I mean, just the build-up and the play, and then the header, and Isaiah's a rock star now, and every place he goes, for the rest of his life, whenever he's in South Carolina and Clemson, everybody's going to remember Isaiah Reed's 2 goals in the national final. I think what's even more impressive, Lawton, is the way that he's handled that. He's kept himself very, very humble. He's the hardest working guy in practice. He's, someone who is leading this next team. He's going about things like there's unfinished business to do, which is the perfect attitude for our team coming up in 2022.
There you have it. Our exclusive interview from Friday, parts of it at least, with Clemson soccer head coach Mike Noonan. Final segment next.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Monday afternoon, Clemson Sports Talk. All right, coming up tonight, the final matchup of the college basketball season is upon us. North Carolina and Kansas, the Roy Williams Invitational. Roy spent 10 seasons from 1978 to 1988 at North Carolina as an assistant under Dean Smith. By the way, I've watched more of that ACC network show, The Tournament. Oh, that is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I'm still not in the 80s yet, but man, it is good stuff. He left North Carolina in 88 and arrived at Kansas and was the head coach at Kansas from 1988 to 2003 and had an unbelievable amount of success there, winning 80% of his games. As a matter of fact, won a larger percentage of his games at Kansas than he did at North Carolina. Won more games percentage-wise in conference at Kansas than he did overall at North Carolina. won 418 games at Kansas. But here's the hiccup. There were Final Four appearances, but there were no national championships. At North Carolina, in just his second year, 2004, they won his first national title. 4 years later, 2008, they're back at it, national champions. Then in 2016, 8 years later, another national title. So it's kind of weird, but he went 2 years, 4 years, then 8, 2, 4, and 8. Just wanted to double check that. Is when Roy Williams won his national titles. His second year, his fourth year, his second year, 4 years after that, and then 8 years after that. And then ultimately, last season was his final year. Now Hubert Davis takes over, and Davis has a chance against Kansas, a team that I said here the other day, it's fairly shocking that the Kansas Jayhawks men's basketball team in my lifetime doesn't have more national titles given how good they've been. They only have 2 since I was born. They got the one under Larry Brown back in 1988, just before Roy Williams takes over that program. And then they won the national championship under Bill Self in, what year was that one? 2008, a 75-68 win over Memphis in overtime. And I think in their history, only one other national championship, I believe, back in 1952. They beat St. John. So only 3 national titles, I think, all time for the Kansas Jayhawks, 52, 88, and 2008. But my goodness, you look at the number of times they've been in the Sweet 16 or the Final Four. I mean, I would be pretty frustrated if I had only converted 16 trips to the Final Four into just 3 national titles. They've also made it into the championship game other than those 3 championship times. 6 other times. So 9 of those 16 times they made it to the title game, but yet did not win. So the Jayhawks have come up short an awful lot. And while North Carolina, I mentioned Caleb Love, and I think he's been the best player in the tournament. And I do think that they've got a great opportunity to win this game tonight if Love plays well. I kind of get the feeling this is going to be Bill Self's chance to get a second championship. I'm sort of feeling like it might be Kansas by a small margin. Now, if Caleb Love goes off and has a great game, color me Carolina blue here. But I think Kansas is going to win tonight. I think they're going to keep the game up tempo. I wonder about Baycott's ankle, how he's feeling. He went out late in that game, but came back to finish. That can be easy to do at that moment, but after a day or so, could there be swelling? Who knows? We'll see. I think Kansas barely wins this game, and I find myself, ironically, Bill Self is not an appealing head coach to me, so I would probably, at this point, don't really care if North Carolina wins it. Although some of you would say I should root against them. However, watching that tourney show from the ACC network has taught me that, look, back in the day, man, Maryland, North Carolina State, you were rooting for your conference because you only have one bid. Like your conference your conference representation showed the basketball world how good your conference might be. I think Kansas wins tonight, but I really would not mind. I think Hubert Davis is a likable coach. I think the fact that they beat Coach K and Duke twice and that storyline is a big deal, and puts a little different perspective on Coach K's last season in Durham. But I sadly, unfortunately, think Bill Self and Kansas win tonight in the national championship. We'll see what happens. The good news is my son, Villanova's out. He already won. Congrats, Mace. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers.